Ilya Rozanov is many things: arrogant yet perceptive, brash but also hilarious, thoughtful, and at the same time sarcastic. He is considerate and gracious, but also domineering and unpredictable. He can be performative at times. He's also a provider, a mama's boy, someone who is unbelievably kind to the right people, of course. An asshole who is emotionally vulnerable and mentally scarred. And honestly, he is such an amazingly layered and complex character that it comes as no surprise to a lot of people that he is quite the fan favorite. The question, though, that I would like us to ponder about today is, with everything we know about him, is it too much of a stretch to call Ilya Rozanov the most well adjusted character of Heated Rivalry? Now, shout out to at Linkla who made a request for an Ilya-focused video in my comments a couple of months ago. Hopefully, it's worth the wait. Before I get started, however, I would like to say a big thank you to my lovely patrons and YouTube members whose support have been instrumental in helping me continue to make content, especially since I started doing this full time at the start of last year, which was the last time I was in paid employment. And a special shout out to Lena, Sherry, Kat, and Holly for their extra support. You get all the hearts and kisses to mwah. If you too would like to support me on Patreon or become a YouTube member to enjoy early access to videos, Patreon and member exclusive content, live streams, maybe even get a shout out, the link to join is in the description bar. With that said and done, though, let's come back around to Ilya and his position as being the most well adjusted character within the show and story. Now, I'm sure someone is about to state in the comments that, well, technically, the most well adjusted character of Eated Rivalry should probably be David Hollander. And you know what? I can see why they might say that. My last Heated Rivalry video did see me wax lyrical about how underrated and yet deserving of love David Hollander is. Honestly, yes, I would say that David is pretty well adjusted within the story. And when we consider the quiet strength of David Hollander and hold it up against Ilya, it's possible that to some of the viewers, Ilya might fall short. However, I have a little bit of a different take on things, and that is the fact that it's easier to be well adjusted when your life hasn't and isn't going to shit. It's easier to show the best version of yourself when everything is pretty much good for you. Adversity, however, is what really does temper a person's character. And I do think that if we take into account the context of Ilya's life, it becomes a bit clear just the depth and strength that his character holds. And yes, even though he does have moments of self sabotage, he's ultimately, to me at least, as well adjusted as it could possibly be, especially considering what he's working with. I mean, let's start with the obvious. Ilya Rozanov at age 12 discovered his mother's body after she had committed suicide. And not only did he have to grieve the loss of the one person in the world who's always been unequivocally in his corner, the one who's been his support system, who loved him unconditionally, not only did this young boy, this child, have to deal with the loss, we do get a bit of a confirmation in the books that the show glosses over about Grigory's response to Irina's suicide and Ilya's discovery of her body, which is that he had his 12-year-old son lie. He forced him to lie to the doctors, to anyone who would ask, that his mother had accidentally swallowed the wrong pills. Gregory was so insistent on maintaining the facade that there was nothing wrong with his family, that his way too young for him wife was not heartbreakingly sad, that she sought a permanent escape from him, that he basically terrorized Ilya into lying, into not being able to publicly acknowledge what his mother had gone through, and which ultimately meant that any act of sadness or vulnerability or mental illness was one that Ilya never had room to express or let shine throughout the rest of his childhood and most of his teenage years, at least until he got the chance to leave Russia and play professionally outside the country. I need that to sink in for a moment, that at his most formative years, Ilya Rozanov had to learn to navigate the space with his father and his brother, who also, we can deduce, probably suffered similarly under Grigory's iron fist, except Alexei was older and he and Ilya took different paths in how they coped and adjusted to Grigory's parenting style and expectations. I keep coming back to Ilya breaking down in tears in Shane's arms whilst they were in Tampa Bay. And the minute he starts tearing up about not possibly getting the chance to have what he wants, i.e., the both of them together, because he would have to sacrifice his home and everything he's held onto in Russia. It always hits me that in that scene, he starts to cry and then immediately apologizes for doing so. Like it was instinctual that any reaction to his tears is one that he would immediately need to apologize for in order to prevent the situation from escalating. Like he has been raised to see his tears as a weakness that cannot be tolerated. When I look at Alexei, I see someone that Ilya could have easily become. Given to excessive vices, cruel, dismissive of others, always seeking to take advantage of what he can, jealous of what others have that he doesn't, mocking and derogatory in a way that is designed to draw pain and hurt. Alexei is who Ilya would have been if, at his core, Ilya Rozanov did not make the active choice to not allow his piece of shit father be the one who molded him. We see an Ilya for whom he clearly made every effort to ensure that he walked the path his mother would have wanted him to. He took nothing of Gregory and everything of Irina's, and we see that choice in how he's been able to find humor and kindness to share with the world, even in the moments when he is being an asshole. Because, yes, the world likes to call Ilya Rozanov an asshole, and he thrives on that. And yet, at the same time, he does it only when it comes to the game or when he's talking with people for whom he has zero respect. As much as he likes to rile Scott up, he still does admit to having respect for him. It's good nature ribbon that we get to see in the first season. I'm not going to talk about how their relationship will change by season two, since I don't want to spoil the books for those who haven't read it yet. But whilst Ilya can be a dick sometimes, it's in good fun when it comes to Scott. It's the same with his relationship with Ryan Price, which I do not think we're going to get to see in season two because of reasons. But the short interaction we got to see in Tough Guy, which is Ryan's book, showed us so much about the care that Ilya extends towards his teammates and those he considers his friends. I also think that getting to see Ilya be so much more than what Gregory would have had him be, so much more than the loss of his mother at such a fundamental age would have wrought on him. There's also the fact that Ilya Rozanov could have easily been another type of hockey player. I mentioned in my David Hollander video that David as a character was a great way to challenge hockey stereotypes as a former player who isn't utterly obsessed with the sport and who doesn't buy into the toxic masculinity and the toxic culture present within it. But I also mentioned in that video that there is so much of David's attitude towards hockey, specifically the parts where it doesn't absolutely consume all aspects of his life, that we can see reflected in Ilya as well. And I would like to reiterate that in this video. Ilya admits in the second Olenov book that he isn't as obsessed with hockey as Shane is. And the show is already set this up in the first season where we see Ilya have some sort of balance when it comes to hockey, whereby Shane is very much way more obsessed with it. It's why ultimately, and I know some fans might disagree with me on this, but it is why I do think that Shane Hollander is the better player. Just because he's more fixated on everything to do with hockey than Ilya is. And before you say it, I know Ilya is most likely rolling his eyes at me and insisting that Shane is second best player in the league, yeah. And to Ilya himself, I would say, I love you. But let us be real, Shane Hollander is the greatest. There is no disputing that. But sorry, away from my brief detour into my Shane Fest, back to Ilya. As I was saying, he's able to maintain a balance between putting his all into the game, rising to become one of the two best talents in the league, whilst at the same time having a life outside of hockey, not being completely defined by the sport, and most importantly for me, being a decent human being, which might sound like an inconsequential thing. But the thing about being a fan of athletes within a sport you enjoy watching is that when news breaks about shitty things that they've done and gotten away with by virtue of their success as athletes, it hits you all over again just how toxic and patriarchal sports culture can be. I say this as a former Kobe fan. And so to have Ilya in the show, someone who has hit the peak of his career, who is considered one of the greats within the sport and whose worth will continue to skyrocket because he's just fully hitting his stride, a man who is clearly very sexual and a party animal and who hooks up a ton with a lot of people. And yet we see him consistently asking for consent, respecting boundaries, with being a fairly decent human being, which I know is the barest minimum, but the bar is in hell at this point. And Ilya is a man who hasn't had a decent role model since he was 12. He's basically raised himself to be the version of himself that we get to meet. Is he messy and does he, like I stated at the start of the video, occasionally self sabotage? Yes, he does. The events at the end of the Rookie of the Year award night and even Vegas confirms that, and yet he's still a man with a solid head on his shoulders who was able to turn out the way he did despite the circumstances of who was raising him and what he had to endure and adapt to. And that for me says a lot. Hell, I would also say that is being able to enjoy sex, explore his sexuality, be proud of his bisexuality, whilst at the same time being patient enough to move at Shane's pace to not belittle his inexperience speaks a lot to Ilya's maturity. And do remember that their first sexual encounter happened when they were both 19 years old. Because sometimes even I forget that at 19, Ilya Rozanov knew enough to not be a dick, to not mock this boy with pretty freckles that he likes, who is clearly nervous about this, but wants it to happen at the same time. I forget that they were 19 because I don't know about you, but his maturity in that moment always makes me picture him as slightly older than he actually is. And then I remember that they met at 17, got drafted at 18, and that barely a year afterwards, they have an ad shot together. And next thing, they have the I might open, I might knock moment, and I am back to swooning again just as I swoon at the incredible care he extends towards the kids at Tampa Bay. I think it says a lot that of all the players present, the only one in the pool playing with the kids is Ilya, and he's playing in a way where he doesn't feel emasculated to pretend to lose to the kids so that they can get a win over him. The way he's silly with them, the humor is so easily displays, even as he pretends to be outraged at them thinking that Shane is the better player. It says so much about the type of person Ilya is: kind, charming, patient, and good with kids. And the next thing, in the next breath, the camera is cutting to the All Stars game, and we see him in his element, confident, skilled, effortlessly passing Shane the puck so that he can score with ease. It's a great way that we get to see right on screen that Ilya is able to be both silly and fun and a safe space for kids to be themselves, and also a tour de force on the ice. Is a complexity that I find myself drawn to and that I appreciate so much so that I really do find him to be one of, if not the most well adjusted character in the show. And considering the fact that we have David Hollander and Captain America Scott Hunter on the same show as well, it says a lot about Ilya's characterization that in my book, he rises above the two of them by virtue of how far he's come, what he's been able to accomplish, and how that sets him apart from everyone else. But of course, these are all just my thoughts. I would, as always, love to hear yours. Whether or not you agree with me, please share them in the comments. Like this video, however. If you've watched this far and haven't done so yet, but enjoyed anything of what I had to say, share it so others can find my channel as well. Or you can check out my gaming or ASMR channels if they sound like something you might be interested in. I have them both linked in the description bar. I will see you tomorrow with a new video. Until then, do remember, obsessing over the things you love, perfectly valid coping mechanism.